All right, so we're going to talk about Pyramid. So my name is Clayton Parker. I am the Director of Engineering at 6 Feet Up. I've been doing Python for quite some time. As Calvin mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of Plone and Zope work. So I actually came up on Plone and Zope, so I learned programming through those frameworks. So my mind is still not recovered from that process. But we have Pyramid, we have Django, we have Flask, we have Bottle, we have all kinds of great things to learn from now. So I'm going to talk about Pyramid. First thing I want to talk about was differentiation. So we've heard about all the other frameworks, but what makes, why would you use Pyramid? What makes Pyramid different? So the first thing, and this is cut off so you can't see it all, but anyway, so the first thing is Pyramid is not built by aliens. It is also not, the developers are not part of some secret, shadowy society. There's been a lot of rumors on the internet about, and on the chat rooms in IRC about where these people came from, what, how they developed this framework. Just want to disseminate those rumors that it was not built by aliens. It will not create a spaceship pyramid-shaped and beam into the sky, a large beam of light and do strange things. Just wanted to start off with that so there was no confusion. You can actually read more about that on the Pylon's documentation. There are a series of denials about the Pyramid framework. So what makes Pyramid different? Besides really awesome metal-looking artwork, and you can get this t-shirt online, by the way, and it totally rocks. I actually went to an Iron Maiden concert with this t-shirt on, and most of the people were like, I don't remember that album. I really don't. I've never seen this album in my life. That's a really cool shirt. And there's a new one coming out in 2 weeks. I did not know this, and I will probably purchase it. So Pyramid is awesome just for this fact alone. But besides that, Pradeep was talking about history, how computer science is fraught with not learning from history. Pyramid is actually an active engagement in history because one of the creators actually had a hand in creating Zope. So he was there, he was making Zope in Zope's heyday. But he became frustrated with Zope on many different levels. It became a very large framework. It's still widely in use today, but he didn't really like the way it was going. He really liked the ideas, the concepts, but he didn't like the framework itself. Not to say he didn't like it, but he had better ideas. So Pyramid was created out of the idea that Django has a lot of really good features. Zope has a lot of good features. No matter what you've heard about the Z word, about Zope, it is the granddaddy of Python web frameworks. It's been around forever. It has a lot of good ideas. Some of the ideas were ahead of their time. And that kind of caused problems for Zope because people weren't ready for it. But also there was things they had to do, like Zope has a datetime module, which is capital D, capital T, where Python itself has a datetime module, all lowercase. This infuriates people because when Zope first started, there wasn't a datetime module, so they didn't have that convenience. It's still there. We haven't gotten rid of it yet in Zope. So, through these trials and tribulations, we've learned, some things that Zope did were great. Transaction management. The ZODB, I mean, you may hear it thrown about quite a bit as well, but it's one of the stock things that comes with Pyramid. So what the Pyramid developers have done is taken the ideas from Zope, from Django, and also from Pylon's 1.0, and turned this into a new framework. And before it was Pyramid, it was called repose.bfg. So BFG meaning big friendly giant, perhaps, big fine gun. Whatever your definition of it was, it used to be called repose.bfg. But repose.bfg was kind of a really, really niche framework in a land of many, many frameworks. And what they did was they were talking to the Pylons community quite a bit, and they had similar grievances. And in 2010, the two frameworks came together. So pylons basically became Pyramid. So I don't know if anyone here is actually familiar with pylons. Anyone used it? 2 people? 3 people? Okay. So, it wasn't the most popular framework ever. I'd used pylons in the past and liked it. But what they wanted to do was, make a friendly place for web development, a simple place. Sort of learn from the mistakes of the past and move forward. So Pyramid itself has some tenets. So if you go to the Pyramid documentation, one of the first things they run you through is what makes Python, or what makes Pyramid different, what makes Pyramid special in a land of many frameworks. One of them is simplicity. So they want you to get up and running, similar to a bottle or Flask. You can make a file in one app, or make an app in one file rather. You can do the microframe framework style. You can also take that one file app and run with it and make a larger app. But to get it up and running and to get going out of the box, they wanted things to be very simple, and they wanted the documentation to be very good, and they wanted test coverage to be very good on the core of Pyramid. So simplicity is one of the tenets that makes Pyramid not necessarily completely different, but sets it apart a little bit. Another is minimalism. So we've talked about Django. We've had arguments about batteries are included. I think Pyramid's more batteries included, but they're not really required. There's a lot of things there for you to use, but you're not necessarily bound to those particular pieces of the application or the framework. Another one is documentation. So one of the tenets of Pyramid is actually documentation. Has anyone actually read through any Pyramid documentation? A handful of people, and contributed. Excellent. So the documentation is great. Every time I have a question, I almost never have to go on the IRC channel. When writing this app, I didn't have to go into the code of Pyramid itself to figure out what was going on. And coming from my background of is OpenFlown, where I often have to, almost the first thing I have to do is dive into the code to see what's going on. Pyramid sets a different standard. Really takes the old nagging question of Zope from the past about, it's not documented, it's hard to figure out. Here we have good documentation, really good documentation. Another is speed, so they want Pyramid to be fast. It's built from the ground up with that idea. And another is reliability. So, what's a web app if it's not reliable? So speed, reliability, simplicity, and minimalism, these all sound like really great things. Another thing that really, I think, differentiates Pyramid itself is Pyramid is one of the first frameworks to support Python 3. So I think CherryPy was one of the first, the very first, to introduce it. CherryPy is not a huge contender in the web framework world, but Bob from the CherryPy creator really wanted to push that forward and make sure that the web gets on Python 3, because Python 2 versus Python 3 has kind of been a long-standing debate at this point. So I think it's sort of partly up to the web frameworks to push that forward. Django, I believe, has Python 3 support in 1.5. So Django's also joining the club, and that's awesome. I don't know if Bottle and Flask Python 3. Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe we'll put a question mark on that one. But that's an excellent point. So it proves that Pyramid is out there pushing the boundaries, making sure we have the best application that we can possibly have. And to go with simplicity, what I forgot to say was one of the first things you read is pay only for what you eat, meaning you only pay basically when you write your application. Only the pieces you bring in are the pieces that affect your app. You don't have all this overhead of all the other apps or all the framework on top of you. You can say, I want to write a single file app. That's fine. I want to write a huge application to be the greatest enterprise application ever. You could do that also in Pyramid. So next I wanted to just do a demo so we can see what it looks like. If I can command tab, which I cannot. And it's on the wrong screen. So here's my app. Like others, I am not a CSS guru or a template guru by any means, so I obviously used Bootstrap here. And it's the first time I'd actually gotten a chance to use Bootstrap. It's a really amazing piece of software, or bit of code. So you have just a basic page here where we're propositioning folks to use the app. We go and sign in. But with the right email address. For a password, which should not. Okay. Sure. So now to check my email for some reason. I actually have this user set up. The perils of live demos.
While you're doing that, I did look at the wall of superpowers. Bottle is Python 3, Flask is not.
Bottle is Python 3, but Flask is not. Okay, interesting. Well, I will go with the backup plan. That looks better. Apparently Mozilla's persona has forgotten me. But luckily I have another account. And I get a 404, that's great. Now I'm logged in.
Nice custom 404.
Yeah, so this is one of the features I actually had. A perfect segue into a feature of the application. So by default, if I get a 404 in the application, it's going to take me to a blank page that says, 404. Not very exciting. There's actually a view config, a little snippet where you can tell it which template you want to take it to. And I sort of put that template inside my main template here, so my 404 looks nice. So now that I've logged in successfully, which is great, I'll go to the home page, and my name's Bob in this version of the account. So this is one of the views of the app. It's pulling in my name dynamically, pulling in the number of tasks I have. So if I go to my tasks, I can see that I apparently have some sort of quest in front of me. And what I did was, so the first time you log into the app, it actually creates you some tasks, and sort of bootstraps you into the application, so you see what's going on, what you can play around with it. I did that through a configuration variable, which I'll show later. So now I add a new task. So I'll bring out your dead. Part of my quest. Just give it dead. We'll just no due date on that one, because some people may not be dead yet. So we've created a task. Let's edit the task. This is hard to do sideways. Sometimes I got tag. Interesting. So I'll remove dead from the list of tags. Click it. maybe. Apparently edit doesn't work anymore. This is the best live demo ever.
Complete that quest.
The quest to submit a task. Wow. Well, this is all working wonderfly hours ago. We can also complete a task, and we'll say OK. So that actually worked. Yay. So we completed the task, updated the number of items remaining. If we complete all our tasks, it'll fill in the stuff. So I did use some JavaScript. Sorry, Pradeep. Another part of the application was to do due dates, sorting by due dates. So I have a little sort here, going up or down, and then I have tasks going up or down, and then seeing a listing of tasks by tag itself. So if I click quest, it's basically the same page, but I've highlighted the tags for each of those. So if I click on night, for instance, so it's narrowed it down to just these two tasks. And the filters still work, or the sorting still works here. I found the shrubbery. I'll just delete that. Say OK. And this again, like Pradeep mentioned, Flask has a notion of flash messages. Pyramid has the same thing. So I just integrated that into the Bootstrap style alerts. And if let's just delete another one. Say OK, and I'm using the modal dialogues because I was just having fun. So it says all done, nice work, have 0 items remaining. So using a little bit of Ajax in there, along with posting back to the server itself. Last thing is my account. So what we were supposed to see at the very beginning before my demo totally failed was when you first log in, because I'm using Mozilla's Persona, which is a plugin from the community of Pyramid. It has no idea of my first name or last name or anything. It's just storing my email address and managing the password. The first time you come to the app, it'll say, hey, I don't know who you are. It creates a user and then asks you for first name, last name. I actually did have a bit of scope creep. I did implement time zone handling. Because I started the app storing UTC, and then I realized that's not going to work if I'm in Eastern. So I threw that in there. That was fun. So I could change my name to be correct. That form submitted correctly, so that's awesome. And if I go back to the home page, it says, hey, it's nice to have you back, Clayton. You have 5 tasks. So that's the app. Oh, and also logging out, super important. So now I've logged out and I'm back to the anonymous view of the application. So that's the app itself. I had a lot of fun playing around with Bootstrap. Obviously, I mean, there's glyphs and things. The hero unit, yeah. It's really boring without something on the page, so I use hero unit a lot. And like I said, I was having fun. I don't get to code as much as I normally used to, so when given the opportunity, I wrote a lot of code. So what were some of the decisions going into this app? So we just saw how it all came together. One of the first things I did was, how am I going to log into the application itself? I could do something really simple and use some of the built-in pieces of Pyramid and basically just store the users in SQL. And I was using SQLite, by the way, but I was using SQL Alchemy. But instead of storing the usernames, passwords, and all that in the database, I decided to try out Mozilla Persona because I'd seen it on a few different apps, like the Badges app, for instance. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea. So it's similar to OpenID or some other like open authentication systems. So that was really easy to get started with in Pyramid. So I basically include the plugin, and then by default, because Pyramid makes no assumptions about what I'm doing, it doesn't really like integrate into my app completely. If I'm doing something really simple where I just need authentication and then I don't show anything to the user, then that doesn't really, I've already succeeded in the goal. But for me, I need to have a way of creating the user. So the first time I log in, the system has no idea who I am. It needs to create a user in the SQL database, then gather some information about me. So I basically had to wire up a login and a logout view. Login view just creates the user, and if there was no user before, takes you to the account view. And then on logout, because you could be on the list page or the tags page or the account page, and when you click log out, by default it just forgets the headers, and you're basically logged out. Your session's been killed. For me, I needed to take you back to the home page because that's one of the anonymous views of the app. So I had to override the logout view, basically say, okay, forget the headers, take you back to the home page, we're done. So that was authentication. Next step was, how am I going to persist the data? So by default in Pyramid, you can use ZODB. How many people in here have actually used ZODB? The same 3 people keep raising their hands. All right. So the ZODB is a database, a persistent store, more than a database. I mean, there's no real query language besides objects. When you store something in the ZODB, you're just putting objects in a database and later just pulling them out and doing things with them. NoSQL, yes, it's the grandfather of NoSQL. And so, some people hate it, some people love it. I'm kind of on the fence. It's kind of like SQLite for NoSQL databases. Because you fire it up, you just throw Python objects at it, and you're golden. You're making an app. But for this app, I decided, kind of counter to Pradeep's point, he decided to go with Peewee because everyone else was using SQL Alchemy and everything else. I decided to go with SQL Alchemy because it's sort of the more known thing. So when people look at the code, they're like, oh, I understand SQL Alchemy. Where if they were looking at ZODB, they wouldn't really quite grok it the same way. So I went with the SQL Alchemy route for the community's sake. So SQL Alchemy is like we saw sort of in Django and similar to what we saw in Flask. You create a model, you say what kind of fields you have, and then later you use those objects to persist things in the database. So nothing groundbreaking there. I had all kinds of choices. So it's Pyramid. I can do whatever I want. I could use CouchDB and fail maybe, like Pradeep did. I could use ZODB. I can use SQL Alchemy, SQLite. I can use Mongo. I can use whatever. And Redis, yes, Redis is an awesome tool. I love Redis. So the choices are abundant. For this one, I went with SQL Alchemy, kind of the easy play on persistence, because SQL Alchemy is kind of the mainstay in ORMs. So that was another decision I made. What else? Oh, so for templating, I also had a gamut of choices: Mako, Jinja2, Chameleon. There's a couple others I'm forgetting. What I chose on this one is just to go with the stock, is Chameleon. So Chameleon, for those who don't know what it is basically a port of ZPT, so Zope page templates from Zope, but sped up tremendously and optimized and tweaked for sort of today's world in templating. For me, it's an easy choice because I've been brainwashed by ZPT for so long. It's just easier for me. So when I step into Chameleon, I'm already in my own world, and everything sort of makes sense. I wanted to play around with Jinja2 because I think Jinja2 is also cool. But for this app, I decided to just go with Chameleon on that one. And Chameleon has some features that are pretty cool as well. So that's templating. We have Chameleon, a cool engine. Some people don't like the syntax. I'm used to it, and one of the arguments we used to have was, ZPT is XHTML compliant, so you can validate your templates, and people just kind of like stare at you weird, like, why would you want to do And I never actually did it because you have to have all the schemas in place and everything. But it's a really cool idea, right? So I like Jinja too because it's it's kind of taken it a bit further and done some other cool things. But for this app, I just use Chameleon. For forms, the scourge of the web, I decided to go with Deform and Colander. So they're things that the Pyramid community has made. The Pyramid community has actually made quite a few different packages, libraries, things that other people are using now. One of them is the base of Pyramid is WebOb. So it's the request object. And then we have all the way up to forms where you have Deform. And in the middle we have all kinds of other little libraries. And all the libraries that they've created are all Python 3 compatible, so that's cool. So for Deform, I've done a couple apps with Deform. It's it's pretty simple to use. It's schema based, and like Pradeep mentioned, he didn't go with replicating the database onto the forms because in this case we have pretty simple forms. So I use Deform to just create the schemas and just create forms. And so Deform also comes, well, the schemas are actually created with Colander, so it's sort of separated into different modules. There's Peppercorn for parsing, Colander for the schema, and Deform for actually the form rendering. I don't know if anyone's heard of Formish, Schema-ish, and what's the other? There's another ish. It's sort of based on those libraries. Again, the author was kind of liked the ideas of those libraries, and being the world it is, we re-implemented it into something else. But Deform is a quick way to get up to speed with forms in Pyramid. A couple minutes. Okay. So the other thing I used was Web Helpers, which is another library that Pyramid gives us. So look at some code. So here's how we wire up a view. We have view config, which is a decorator on a function. So we tell it the route name. The render is the template. So in this case, it will actually figure out that it's a Chameleon template and render it in that way. And then permission here is guarding this view against anonymous users. And all of our views that have a renderer in this case will just return a dictionary. And the dictionary is passed to the template so we can use those variables within the template. So views are meant to be really simple. We just return a dictionary so we can just use those variables. And then we wire it up in the init. So when our application's instantiated, we have this configuration object, and then we add the new route for the list. And then we scan for all the views. So the scan is actually scanning all these decorators to hook the view and the route together. And then at the bottom, we're just creating the WSGI app, similar to what we saw in other apps. One of the cool things about Pyramid is a JSON renderer. So we have a view config. Here we say the renderer is just JSON. So when we say JSON, it knows that whatever we return here, it's going to convert it into JSON. So in this case, it's the autocomplete for the tags, which I didn't show off, I forgot about. You pass it the term, it goes and grabs the term, all the tags out of the database, and then creates this, all the tags filtered by what you've passed in. And then here we're just turning a list comprehension, creating a dictionary with what the autocompleter library needs. So that's
almost too clever.
What, the list comprehension?
Yeah.
That's beautiful right there. You got a dict inside of a nicely formatted list comprehension. It's beautiful. So we get this back, and then the view config renderer just turns that into JSON for the tags widget. One of the things that really sets Pyramid apart from a framework like Django is, in Django we have a settings.py. There's some implications about using a settings.py where on application startup we have some issues. Pyramid actually uses a settings registry. So in this case, I've set the setting in my production.ini. So when I start up the application, I pass it an ini file, and that's how it knows how to start up the file or the application. Here I've added just my own, totally ad hoc string to the file. If it conflicted with something else, it would yell at me. But here, this is how I actually conditionally created the content when I log in. So here we have to-do pyramid generate content equals true. And then in the code, when I get the request, I do request.registry.settings. And then from settings, it's basically just a dictionary. And then I just get the key out of there. And then I've access to my application or framework specific settings. So like the Mozilla persona is actually configured like that. So I pass it the site name. So if I'm on my local host, I pass in that key. If I'm on a front-end backed version of the app, I pass it that URL. So that's really simple, and there's the web helper, or the settings has a few helpers to sort of convert values from INI files into the application. Pros and cons. So pros, I mean, Python's really simple. It's really fast to get started in. There's not a lot of fighting the framework because you're making the decision. So if anything, you're fighting yourself when you're making decisions. The base of Pyramid is really well tested, really well documented. We can do both class and view-based, or class and function-based views. So you can just throw a function in a file, add the decorator, you're good to go. Or if you have a class, you can just add the decorators to the functions within the class and make views, which is really handy. One thing I didn't have a chance to show was how we do the global templates and hook that all up. But it's pretty much the same as you would with functions. What else? So there is a nice community growing around Pyramid. It's only been Pyramid for a couple years, well 3 years I guess now. But the community has grown fast. There's a lot of new add-ons being added every day. People adding new cookbooks, blogging, and having lots of great ideas about Pyramid itself. So cons, I mean, for me, there's not a lot of cons for using Pyramid. I think the biggest con is, with great power comes great responsibility. It's up to you to shoot yourself in the foot. You choose the wrong technology, that's your fault. But also, with that, what I was going to say. Oh, so also, with the great power comes responsibility in other ways. I was scope creeping myself on this app because I was just having fun playing around with stuff, and it's easy to be like, oh, that'll be easy. I'll just throw that thing in there and it'll just go. So you got to be careful, not to think, oh, I can just do everything. There are still restrictions when you're building the app. And also, it is a younger framework compared to Django. It's sort of more mature compared to Flask or Bottle. It is still young, so that is a bit of a con. There's a much larger, as Jason showed in his presentation, there's a much larger community using Django. But Pyramid's growing, so that's good. So last thing, ideal use cases. So like I said, you can make a single file app. That's super simple. You can make an API. There's some add-ons like Cornice that make creating APIs even simpler with Pyramids. You can make a REST API by using their little framework for doing that. Or you can make a full-blown CMS. There's a couple CMS apps built on top of Pyramid already. One's called Kodi. We also have knowledge management frameworks like Carl built on top of Pyramid. So it's really a wide-ranging use cases for Pyramid. That's sort of why we really like it, because we can do something really quick, really simple, really fast, or we can do something. We can take that, make it a bigger application later, or we can say we're going to make a giant application. We're going to make it all on top of Pyramid. So for us, it's kind of a one-stop shop for that sort of thing. Obviously, if we're getting into like really hardcore CMS stuff, we're probably going to use Plone, because Plone's been around for a long time as well and does those things as well. So you still have to make the proper decisions, but Pyramid is pretty awesome. So if you want to play around with the app, it's up at demo.todo.63up.com. Hopefully the login works for you. It is kind of confusing, the persona login, but go try it out.
All right. Got any questions?
How much time do you think you have in that project?
You know,
A little crazy.
I went a little overboard, but I probably had about maybe 10 to 15 hours, like head down coding, making the app. I'm OCD, so like I had to make it all look perfect, you know. So you know, and there was reading docs. Some of the things I hadn't used yet, so you know, this reading, like even Bootstrap. You know, I read through the Bootstrap docs like 5 times, like trying to figure out all the cool things I could use. So yeah, about 10, 15 hours probably.
One of the things that you didn't mention that I'm pretty sure is still there in Pyramid that I like about it was the built-in debugging when you're doing development issues. There's some built-in system where you can basically on the web page,
Yeah.
like you're literally typing Python expressions if an exception occurs. It has very nice. I haven't seen that in any other framework.
Yeah.
Rather than doing like a console GUI, it's like a GUI console, but it's in the web page.
Right. So for debugging, you know, if you run into an error, the default settings, if you have the tools installed, pulls you up a page where you can go to any line in the stack trace and start executing code from that line, which is really awesome, really handy. And also from a shell perspective, there's the pshell command, so you can use IPython or bpython or just regular Python to bring up a shell and start fiddling around. Any other questions?
Also, I just wanted to mention, are you a fan of Stargate series or movie? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, so Stargate, yeah.
And there's the obvious.
Yes. So go read about the denials of Pyramid on the Pylon's homepage, and yeah, it's a fun read. Nathan?
Like one of the things that I was hoping to get to that I didn't get to with the file app was like a nice like tag like editor. So which one did you use?
The when it was like the little green, yeah. So I ended up using jQuery.tags input. This is a jQuery plugin. Someone had written a deform widget for it. So basically, I installed that add-on, and then it brought in the template with a little bit of snippet of JavaScript to do that bit. It's not the greatest little widget. It looks kind of cool, but there's problems on mobile and some other things. So.
Like if I actually like wrote like an API method to return like tags, but like I never really got to like
Right, the autocomplete was a fun little thing to write using the JSON. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any questions? All right, let's keep playing the hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody have a good time tonight? Awesome. So once again, I want to thank all of our sponsors, 6 Feet Up, Direct Employers, Angie's List, and Upland, and then also this great space at Speakeasy. We were privileged enough to come in here and use this space. We really had a good time here tonight. I want to take a quick survey. This is more of Mark. Where did Jim go? Doing this for him. Our marketing guy wanted to know some information about you all, and I'll just give him a quick summary. How many people here are doing Python for their day job? A little more than half. Awesome. How many people here are doing Python for their hobby? Awesome. Almost all of you. Okay. How many people here are doing Python for in-house projects at their work? And how many people here are doing Python for clients? Okay, so a lot more in-house people doing like Python work for your own groups. That's awesome. Okay, great. So, well, again, thanking our sponsors. Don't forget, IndyPy meets the second Tuesday of the month at the Northside Scotty's at 7 p.m. We would love to have you all come join us. The next meeting will be a more detailed overview of the Pyramid app. We'll start off with that one, and then we'll move on to exploring some of the other frameworks again. We always have a good time, lots of discussion about open source, Python, beer, food, lots of other things kind of happen in those meetings too. So again, yeah, we'll be talking about those meetings again. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Please enjoy. There's still more beer, a few more, sure there's a few more glasses of beer left, restrooms in the hall. We're happy to have you all enjoy, hang out, and do a little more networking, and I'll turn the music back on. So thanks again. I really had an enjoyable time. Glad you all came.